Now I can talk. We'll turn this down just a little bit. Alrighty, everybody, welcome. This stream's going to be a little bit different because it's going to be mostly a study stream, and I hope to do some writing towards the end or maybe during some breaks. But I really need to get into the motivation to study, so I decided that this was the best approach to at least start, and we'll see how productive I am with it. I don't really necessarily want to get distracted, so if it leads to more distraction, then I probably won't do something like this again. But I think that this gives the best results for the most part. So we're going to go ahead and give this a try and see how it is. And we're going to be looking at two sites really. One is Quizlet that I'm sure everybody's aware of, and the other site is 240 Tutoring, which it's probably not many people are aware of that. I wasn't aware of that till I had to take this, and this is all for the state special education test here in Texas that I have to take in order for me to be a teacher once I graduate and to clinically teach, because this next semester is Field 2, with the semester after that being clinical teaching, and that is directly student teaching. So it is very important to have this test passed by that point. So that is going to be the majority of the focus for today. So yeah, so basically we're going to just be studying for a little bit, and then we'll do some writing, then we'll study for a little bit and maybe take a break, and then study for a little bit and go on from there and just see how it goes. I haven't really done something like this before, but we'll see how it works. And I'm not entirely sure how much I'll be able to show of the 240 Tutoring, because I don't necessarily want to get in trouble per se with the people that have made this site, because it is a service that is paid for. It's not necessarily a free service. Quizlet, on the other hand, is free, so I'm debating that point as well, but I don't necessarily think that that is the biggest deal when it comes towards what we are trying to do here. So the state test that we are preparing for is this Texas Special Education test, and it's separated into major categories here. And you can see the attempt 1 breakdown compared to the attempt 2. And then attempt 1, I scored 89% on the practice test. And then I went in and took the real test and scored 200 and something. I was 3 points down from a passing grade of 70%. Was it 70%? No, it's 80%. I was 3 points down of a passing grade of 80%, meaning I missed 2 questions. So if I haven't missed those 2 questions, I would have passed the test, the real test, the first time around. So that was very aggravating. But I went ahead and took that test again and got a 98%, which is obviously a big increase, but I still don't necessarily know the exact parameters behind getting that score. In other words, I'm happy with the result, obviously, but I'm not really sure I could be able to mimic that result a second time around. So that is why I'm going to be studying a lot more over the course of today and the next couple days on this test in order to take the real test again when it comes time to do that. So anyway, I think we kind of all understand what the goal of today is. So I'm not particularly sure, like I said before, how much I'm going to be able to show of 240 Tutoring, because this is a paid for service, and the way it's set up is it has its information, and then it goes into numerous quizzes in each content area, such as this mathematics instruction has the instructional content, followed by flashcards, followed by 12 quizzes. And each one of those kind of has the same number of quizzes. This one has 20 quizzes, so this is almost double of the first one with mathematics instruction. But this is throughout the entire modules of 240 tutoring. And if you got over I think it was 90% on 240, you would get a guaranteed pass on the test. But, well, they would say that you would get a guaranteed pass, is I guess the best way to say that. I'm not entirely too sure if I believe that or not, but that is not the major focus. So I think if we're going to be using 240, we're going to be using it the same way we would use Quizlet, and that being the flashcard feature that they have, where it tells you what it is, followed by the definition for it. So I think that would be the best way to practice this test and to gain understanding and to see kind of how much I know over each area, over how much I need to know over the areas. So that is the focus of today. And then we also have this followed by special education flashcards for the Quizlet. So I think that is going to be the main strategy for today, and we'll see kind of how well it performs. And I was going to put up a timer on the screen, but I didn't particularly like the way it looked, so I went ahead and took it down. But we are going to be adding a timer onto our tab here, so that we will be able to keep up with the timed amounts I want to perform for the studies, and then we'll be able to do some writing in between. So I think we're going to do a 30-minute timer as far as the studies go, and we will go on from there. Nope. There you go. 30-minute timer. So we'll do 30 minutes of studying, and then we'll do, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes of writing or so. So there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I think I'm going to go ahead and start with a Quizlet game on the flashcards. So we're going to go ahead and match. Some of these questions are very specific, so in effort to get time, I'm not sure how well it will work, but I just kind of want to see basic understanding and how quick I am able to match certain terms with each other, and most importantly, how accurate I am at completing those terms. So that is the main goal for today as we wait for this to load. Like I said, this is... yeah, this is terrible. I'm not sure how well this is gonna work. What? What is this? I guess it's this one? I thought I pressed that already. I guess not. I got first place with 72 seconds. But I don't necessarily think that that is accurate. So that obviously did not work. It's too much to match for the terms to be accurate, which is a shame, but that's alright. Also, the Wi-Fi is very slow. The connection is very slow. It looks like we were bouncing some frames quite often there. No, I don't want to do this again. Stop. So we're gonna try the other one, just see what it is exactly, and then we'll go on from there. I'm not too sure how accurate that one is going to be either, because these are really long questions with a short answer. So the idea of having to write out the entire answer and even the question in some scenarios, because sometimes the question is a sentence, sentence and a half, 2 sentence type of length. So I'm not exactly sure how far away we are, how much I will be able to do for that. So we will wait for this to load, and then we'll try the gravity just because I'm curious, and we'll go on from there. So yeah. Come on. Oh, hello. Yeah, I'm back, I think. We'll see how long I stay on for or continue to stream. I've been very random with that. But yeah, it is loading extremely slow, which I was afraid of. The Wi-Fi isn't the best in this particular area, so I may decide to go elsewhere if I were to do that again. But yeah, it's very slow. Hopefully you're having a good day, good evening, or good night, depending on wherever your location is. Uh-oh. Which of the following education? Well, I missed this one. So you look, this is your answer. So I don't really think that this would work. Students per state may be eligible for... Oh, that's fine. Work stations. I guess not. Teacher directed. Yeah, this doesn't work. But that's okay. Teacher directed cooperative learning. The first grade's teacher sets up several math stations for students to rotate through in groups of 4 and 5. The teacher The teacher sits at a large table that serves as one station and assigns students to work for pairs or groups of 3 to represent and solve the addition problems using plastic teddy bears. As students solve the problems, the teacher observes immediately and points out mistakes so that students can try again. The teacher prizes each pair of the small group upon successful completion of the problem. The instructional approach that the teacher is utilizing is teacher-directed cooperative learning. Only doing pretty well, rowing in the tail of moving. If there was a typing of the dead game, that would be fun for sure. A lot more fun than this. I don't think this is particularly working, but I'm still gonna play it out just for the heck of it. And picking up your taste in music, ever listened to clowncore? Probably not. This was just... actually, not necessarily a random playlist. I've listened to this playlist before, but I thought it would be a little bit more interesting than some of the other playlists that this software has. Especially with it being a study stream. I want to kind of stay awake and not want to fall asleep, so... Usually it's either this type of music or more like super chill type of music when I'm studying. But that is not always the case. I was going to read it. Oh well. In order to best assess the student's ability to use phonics skills, attempt and spell, teachers regularly assess and evaluate formative assessment. Nope. That also makes sense. See, they don't give you the options. Yeah, this doesn't work. That's a shame, but it's okay. Not everything's always going to work perfectly. So we'll just have to do flashcards. Plus, this is not the original set I had, which is a shame. But we'll still play out the flashcards and see what they have to say. I'm not entirely sure how well these flashcards are going to work, because these flashcards are based off of the test, meaning that you're going to have several options to choose from. So if they don't give you the options in the question, per se, then it would be very hard to do this test the way it's supposed to be performed. You would have to be guessing, and it's not really a guessing type of test. It's more of, here are your options, choose which one works best. So, we'll see what the flashcards are, but well, I already saw that one, so we'll move on to the next one. Miss Shireen is writing IEP objectives for a second grade student with math deficits. The text is essential knowledge and skill for math students' development and understanding of the base 10 place value system and place value concepts. The student understands of base 10 place values includes... I think I messed up here. The student understanding of base 10 place value indicates ideas accounting of in units and multiples of thousands, hundreds, and tens and ones, and a grasp of number relationships, which students determinate in a variety of ways. Which of these would be an appropriate go? The student will skip count by 10 and 100. The student will read any number less than 1,000. The student will understand place values for 10 points and 10 for hundreds, tens, and ones. The student will know for coins. Pretty sure it's going to be this one here. The student will understand place values for hundreds, tens, and ones. Let's see what it is. Yep. Alright, so we got that one right. Woo! Woohoo! One right. Woohoo! Next one. Which of the following statements is true of the Every Student Exceeds Act, ESSA? Special education teachers must have multiple areas of certification. Students must participate in standardized testing annually between grades 3 and 12. The federal government will determine support and consequences for low performing schools. 1% of students per state may be eligible for alternative testing. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be this one, but I'm not too sure on this one. I was a lot more sure on the last one, but let's see what the answer is. Come on. Yep, okay, I was right. Woohoo! 2 for 2 so far. Which of the following student activities is an example of structural analysis? Matching words to pictures, reading 100-word passage in less than a minute, we're gonna switch music a little bit. This is getting a little bit too... This one may be a little bit too chill, but I haven't seen this station yet, so we're going to give it a try with chill piano. Hopefully this doesn't put us directly to sleep. If it does, then we'll move on to another station. But for now, we will be peaceful and start with this channel and see how it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and reread this question, and then we'll move on. Which of the following student activities is an example of structural analysis? Matching words to pictures, reading a 100-word passage in less than a minute, identifying prefixes and suffixes in a list of words, using a graphic organizer for pre-writing. Okay, so I don't remember what structural analysis is. I don't. But using process of the elimination here, I want to say that I have an idea over which one it might be. So, reading a 100-word passage in less than a minute doesn't make much sense to me as far as a structural analysis goes. So I'm pretty sure that one is going to be out. Identifying prefixes and suffixes from a list of words, I also don't think is the right answer. Now that one I wouldn't be as surprised if it ends up being the right answer compared to the other one. But I'm pretty sure this one is going to be using a graphic organizer. Okay. Identifying prefixes and suffixes in a list of words. So 2 for 1 right now. We have 2 right, 1 wrong. I'm going to quickly change our passage here. Let me just set this down for a little bit. I'm gonna try to... We'll just let that jump. That's okay. I'm gonna try to lift this up just a little bit so that we don't have as much neck issues. We might have to adjust our camera here. Okay. There you go. Alrighty, let's go to our next one. Which authoritarian of IDE implemented a time frame of not more than 60 days? What? What reauthorization of idea, I think that's supposed to be. Yeah. Implemented a time frame of not more than 60 days to conduct initial evaluation for special education eligibility. What type of question is this? This doesn't make any sense at all. I think it's going to be 2009, but I'm not sure. Yes. Alright, that was a little bit of a guess, so I don't know if I would entirely count that or not. That was definitely more of a guess, but it is the right answer. So we do have to take correct answers where we get correct answers. So, yeah. Oops, lost my cat, but that's alright. Okay. In order to build students' fluency, appropriate pre-reading strategies would be to have students stop at the end of each page and summarize what happened. So this is pre-writing, so that is not going to be an option. Have students turn into a partner and talk about what they liked and didn't like in the story. Still, that's not necessarily pre, that's post. Excuse me. Okay. Have students scan the text and then predict what the text will be about. That's an option. Have the students look at the title and then the name, similar titles from other books. Okay, so it's the last two. If there's only one option to pick from, meaning it's a one answer question, I will say have students scan the text. Perfect. Perfect. Next one. Under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which of the following is not considered a disability category? So it doesn't give us the option, but it's going to be a brain injury type of one, I want to say. But let's see what this says. Post-traumatic stress disorder. So again, it didn't give us the options, so not too happy with that, but we will press on to the next one. Yeah, this was pretty much a test, these questions. But let's go ahead and give it a read. A first grade teacher sets up several math stations for students to rotate through in groups of 4 to 5. The teacher sits at a large table that serves as one station and assigns students to work in pairs or groups of 3 to represent and solve addition problems using plastic teddy bears. As students solve the problems, the teacher observes and immediately points out mistakes so that the students can try again. The teacher price is each pair or small group upon successful completion of the problem. The instructional approach the teacher is utilizing is small group instruction. Teacher-directed cooperative learning. Okay, sure. Next one. A teacher and an autism unit has several students who became frustrated whenever their routines change. 2 of them are non-verbal. What is one technique the teacher can use to help her students become more flexible? That's going to be anything to do with a schedule. So a visual schedule or a board schedule. Anything to do with that is going to be the answer here. Visual schedule. There we go. Thank you. Next one. Which of the following strategies can promote reading comprehension among students with learning disabilities? Give me the strategies! Okay, let's see. Which of the following strategies can promote comprehension among students with learning disabilities? Anything with increased pauses, increased chances of learning, such as more questions. Anything with more questions will get the student to be able to understand it. Peer reading can also help, not in snowball reading or popcorn reading, but the idea of being able to read together as a group and highlight any misses in a way that is more refreshing and more positive than negative. But I'm not really sure exactly what they're looking for because they didn't give us the options to choose from. And once again, this test is very much a structured test on what you get to choose from. Use of semantic webs, instruction and pre-reading, direct instruction and decoding. I was kind of talking about the third one with more of the decoding strategies and guided reading help for the problems that are at hand. But I definitely can understand the other results and options that were on the board there. So we're going to go to our 11th one. Which of these behaviors would be concerning when evaluating a 3-year-old speech-language development? So, if the student is only replying in very short ways, that is a problem. But if they're giving you 2 to 3 word answers, it still shows some understanding of the question and being able to respond back. Now, where that gets a little different is the effect of how well the reply is done. So the worst thing that you can have as a teacher for a student with speech language development problems is the effort of not getting any replies at all. That is the biggest concern here. So if they're only replying, say, yes, no, you're not really getting the understanding of the students. It could simply be a guess, and the guess may be right the majority of the time, but that's not showing necessarily the understanding you are looking for at even that age of a student. So that is the major concern when it comes to that. But we're going to go ahead and give this a click over and see what their options are as far as the test. So they don't have any options, but I am pretty sure that is the right answer. So we missed about 3 of those out of the 11 questions, which is definitely not perfect. We need to get really 10 out of 11 right. So we still have some ways to go as far as this set for studying and as far as other sets for studying for this test. That being very important part of what is going on throughout this learning of this thing. We're going to go ahead and change our channel again because this is a little bit too chill. We're going to try to get something more upbeatish. We'll do lo-fi. Usually lo-fi generally is pretty good. We've had a few lo-fis that we have enjoyed. So we're going to go ahead and give this one a try and see if we like this station for today's stream. So once again, we have finished that Quizlet set. So we still have about 3.5 minutes left on our timer for this part of our study. So I think we're going to go ahead and move to our 240 and do some of the flashcards there. So I'll go ahead and press on that before we just I keep blabbering on and not do the definitions. Sorry about that. So proportional manipulatives. So this would be any manipulatives, probably especially used in math for determining mostly like fractions. You could use it with decimals and place values as well, but really the majority of this is going to be with fractions, such as the pi shapes, to show proportion relating to other things. So in other words, 3/4 looks like this using your triangle shapes, while 9/12 looks like, well, 9/12 would be summarized, 9/13 or whatever would look like this, showing your triangles. So you'll be able to understand that this fraction is actually bigger than this fraction, in a way that you can feel with your hands. So that is what a proportional manipulative is. Well, let's go ahead and see what their answer is for proportional manipulative. Or manipulative. I feel like I say that word wrong. I probably do. Anyway, objects that are proportional to each other, which represent shape and size. Yeah, that's pretty much what I said. You can see that they have their triangles like I was talking about. I actually didn't end up using this in the elementary classroom I was in this last semester, but they did have them in the classroom. No students were really operating at that fraction level quite yet. They were starting to work on fractions, a few of them, but none of them were quite at that level. But base 10 blocks, which aren't quite a proportional one, were being used. So again, it just depends on the students. So what are they in general? In general, I would say they're something that you can have in your hand, something you can touch that shows different things. So we just saw it that showing proportion, but it can also show place values. You can use it for money, you can use them for multiplying, and you can use them for taking away and adding, just to physically see the different types of things in front of you, such as base 10 blocks. But let's see what their summarized version of one is. Objects used by students to illustrate and explore mathematical concepts, such as to represent numbers in an equation, blocks, and coins. So I would say that I had that one right as well with our base 10 blocks. It looks like we're going to have time for one more, and then we'll move on to our first writing break. So a summative assessment. Summative assessments are assessments, meaning something that is given to students or something the teacher is looking for that has a grade attached to it. So that would be mostly tests for math, even science you could do tests, really any subject you can do tests. That is our timer. We're going to go ahead and stop that so we don't have it blasting in our ear. Go back to here so that we can finish this summative. So really it's anything that results in a number and a score. Summative is a test, to be short. Let's see what they have to say. Assessments of learning given at specific points in time in order to determine what students know and don't know. Summative assessments are generally formal. State assessment, district benchmarks, semester or 6-week test, and end of the unit or chapter. So I would say that we also had that one right, but we have hit the end of our 30-minute study block. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to our timer, and we are going to add 20 minutes. Actually, no. Shall we do 20 or 15? 20 or 15 minutes for a good break. You know what? We'll do it like what the sprints do. We'll do 10 minutes. We'll do 10 minutes of our writing, and then we'll go back to our 30-minute period. This isn't quite a typical sprint. It's kind of a reverse sprint, really. But I think we can all kind of grasp what we're doing here. That was weird. My phone just got a call and someone ended it directly after calling. That is very bizarre. But we're going to wait for this to load, as things have been taking a while to load. And this is my really book, but it hasn't even been a chapter yet. It's still in its very early stages of planning and writing, but it's still something that is being worked on for a while. As you can see here, the last edit on this page has been on February 23rd, so it has been a while since I have written anything in this document for the book. But we have done quite a bit of research in our research document, so we haven't exactly been standstill this entire time, but we haven't exactly been as productive as I would like, or as others might like, who may have been following this process of writing the story. So we're going to go ahead and kind of scroll this down. Once it finally loads up, while we wait for it to load, I'm going to take a couple of drinks of this soda here, and then we will continue on. Okay. So as you can see here, we finished up our last part of when Sir William entered the room. We added a little bit since the last time. Real quick, I'm gonna close that door. That's distracting to me. Alrighty. So we're gonna read our last two paragraphs, and then we'll start on from there. William stepped towards the light. It casted a shadow twice its size behind the castle into walls. This shadow often made Sir William smile as he grew in confidence each morning, standing and looking out the window. I don't think we need to add the window, but we'll continue. Upon looking out the window, there was not much ever to see besides a stable, yet it always left for good viewing. The horses, although kept well and fed well, still tended to not want to do what the silly farmhands wanted. After leaving the room, the window... That makes sense. Sir William always thought a little bit on exactly what to wear. Often Sir Williams would wear a traditional gown along with a fresh tunic underneath. The servants knew that the tunic must be kept fresh, or Sir William would get very mad. Once the tunic was put on and the traditional gear and clothing on top, Sir William was ready to go out and address the guards. One of many of his duties is to address the soldiers that are also in rear guard on the duties they are needed for the day. The elaborate design and jeweled rings were also shown per the Queen's liking, but always served a more practical sense. He also made sure to wear the dress gloves and bracelets that the Queen also liked, but once again served a practical sense. Sometimes if the Queen didn't want to see Sir Williams, he would elect to wear the battle gloves instead of the more artful professional gloves. It was time to address the soldiers, as Sir William walked out the door and headed to the corner of the castle where the main room for the battle gear. When Sir Williams entered the room, the soldiers always changed what they were doing to face him, no matter what they were doing beforehand. So that is what we had there. If we were to blow up my campfire, which we may end up doing later on in this stream, we'll be able to add certain implements of the soldiers, because right now we have a little bit of this section more to do with the prologue than anything else, where there was a group of soldiers, but these soldiers were unnamed. So I think this is the first time where we are going to name a soldier, and this will be quite important to keep track of, because it'll be a good idea during, say, battles or any major events I might want to throw to get a perspective from the soldier's point of view. So I think we're going to go ahead and add a soldier's perspective. And we will flip through this here. Okay. So, one soldier. We need to show, not tell. One soldier stood up and walked directly to Sir William, holding out his hand. As Indy. Alrighty, so our 10 minutes is up there. We're going to go ahead and read our couple sentences that we were able to put down, and then we'll put on a 30-minute timer to continue our 240 flashcards. When Sir William entered the room, the soldiers always changed what they were doing to face him, no matter what they were doing beforehand. One soldier stood up and walked directly to Sir William, holding out his hand as any gentleman would. Sir William, glancing at the hand as he continued to walk further into the room, where all were crowded. So, that is what we were able to put down. Not the most, but I'm starting to realize something that's become a little bit hard for me. I think this is the first time where I really tried to make even like a super long story. Not even a novel per se, but a extended story. I'm running into the issue of trying to figure out the exact way and style I want it to be written in. The basic concept of show, not tell. I tend to just want to kind of tell it in a more, say, narrative perspective than I want to show it in a character's perspective. So that has become quite challenging for me to figure out as we go on. But hopefully we'll be able to solve those issues as we get more experienced and really start to write more often. I haven't exactly been super consistent with those efforts. So we're going to go ahead and add our 30-minute timer, and then we will continue on. Norm reference test. Okay. So I'm pretty sure that these are going to be the tests that are done, not necessarily like, say, a state test or a benchmark test to compare students by grade and by age. But I think norm reference tests are more to do with comparing students in a class perspective. They'll probably be able to say that much better than I said on here, but we're gonna go ahead and give this a turn over and see what they have to say. Tests that compared individuals' performance achievement to a group called the norm group. Okay, so I didn't have that right. Actually, no, I may have, because I said they compare it to the class. But I think this is more general than a class. It can be compared, I guess, to the age group of the entire grade, and doesn't necessarily have to be the state standardized STAR test that Texas has. But that's probably the more standard approach that it does have for it. So I don't necessarily think I am entirely wrong with this perspective, but definitely not entirely right either. So that is something to keep an eye on. Non-proportional manipulatives. So these are going to be manipulatives that aren't proportional. Yeah. We'll see what their examples are. Objects that are not proportional to each other, that with respect to shape and size. Often all of the items are the same size. Counting tokens. Okay, yeah, sure. Formative assessments. So these are the majority of assessments that are done for the school. Formative assessments are different than informal assessments. I'm sure we're going to get to informal assessments as well. Informal assessments would be like the teacher walking around the classroom during a group activity looking for certain things. A formative assessment would be the teacher, when students are being graded by a rubric, looking for those things on the rubric to be determined by. In short, in school, formative assessments are probably the majority of assessments that are being done. Assessments for learning, usually mid-instruction assessments for the purpose of assessing students' progress and information that the teacher so instruction can be altered as needed. Okay. Abstract thinking, that's thinking outside the box, thinking a little bit more complex. So we wait for it to load. Using numbers or letters in an equation. Okay. Learning style. Learning styles are styles of learning that the student is more prepared to deal with, such as auditory learner, visual learner, kinesthetic learner, and any of the others that I may have missed in a short demonstration of what a learning style is. And they are very important for teachers to notice. The manner in which students learn best. Yeah. Universal screener. A universal screener is something that can be done universally, meaning across the entire scenario, so across an entire class or across an entire grade hall or something like that. And it can be compared to an assessment administrated to all students to gather data from groups such as intervention groups. Compartmentalized teaching. Let's see what they say. I'm not sure about this one. Concepts taught one at a time in isolation of other components. No longer recommended. Concepts taught one at a time in isolation of other concepts. Okay. I guess I don't entirely see what's wrong about that. Visual methods. Visual methods are anything, since this is math related, or math flashcards is going to be something that can be demonstrated mathematically through a visual, such as how to do addition and subtraction following these steps. And then you would have those steps written on the board. Diagnostic assessment, so that's going to be determining if somebody has a learning disability or other disability that impacts their learning, and with strategies and things to change that can be changed for the better. Cognitism is to do with thinking, how well you think, how much you think, and how good you are at thinking, that being just the concept of, well, thinking. Learning how behaviors by connecting current knowledge with new knowledge. Okay. Formal assessments, we already did that. Line graphs are graphs that are pointed, and there is a line drawn across them to demonstrate usually positive or negative growth. Integrated teaching, that is really what schools are focusing on nowadays, meaning the process of having special education students also in the same classroom as not special education students, or for better terms, general education students. So that is the concept of integrated teaching. Informal assessments, those are assessments that are generally done without a rubric being implemented. The idea of the teacher walking across the classroom and discussing it with the students in a more non-standardized way. Learning curriculum-based assessments. That's going to determine the level at which students are operating and what may need to be changed in order for it to be increased or for the better. Testing the curriculum being taught. Kinesthetic learning is learning that is learners are to do with hands and movement, doing activities. Text is essential knowledge and skills. That is what determines what our curriculum is being based on and how and what the curriculum has to change for. Numeric representation is obviously to do with numbers, and numbers showing a definition of certain proportions or certain things that are needed. Concrete representations, that's going to be more to do with using physical pieces to represent mathematical problems. Alright. Cartesian reference is going to be like the star. Multiple choice. Alright. Exit slips are things done at the end of class that shows understanding of what was being taught. Pie charts are charts that are shaped like a pie, are shaped in a circle that have triangle or potentially ovalish, or not really oval shapes, but that determine the value. Constructivism is constructive feedback. Performance-based assessment, we already did that. Auditory methods, that is auditory learners such as podcasts, potentially presentations, videos, learning through the means of listening. Symbolic stage, representation stage. I'm not sure what this is. Drawing pictures or symbols to represent numbers in an equation, such as squares. Okay. Auditory learning, again, we just did that. Bar graphs are graphs that are rectangle in a upward direction, meaning that they go up, obviously, that show a value of data determined by a category, as we saw there. Graphic pictorial representation are graphs that show value, determined value, based off of certain components. And this one, they had the number line. Symbolic representation, that's what they do with the symbols. Portfolio is to do with the student's work at the end of the semester that can show growth, and usually should show growth, so that it can be compared at the end of the semester, and it's not so much a formative assessment like some of the others that are out there. It is a little bit different when compared to those. Okay. Concrete operational stage. Progress monitoring. The idea of the teacher determining ways to see if the students are going in a good or bad direction. Number lines. English language learners are students that usually are not from the United States or from outside the country, that English is not their first language and are often learning English. So at the same time of them being in school, they are also learning the language that is being taught at the school. So it is a very, very, very hard thing for English language learners, since English is not their first subject, and that is all the classes being taught are in English. So knowing our English language learners are very important. visual learning is learning by seeing, and that is also very important. And some things to be done for visual learners would be to have videos, to have pictures, to have maps, so that the visual learner will be able to see these concepts being demonstrated, such as what is being taught for math in this particular case, because it is math flashcards. Tactile methods is anything to do with touch in a tactile sense. Okay, so we're done with those flashcards. I'm debating if I want to do the flashcards on each unit. That is going to take quite a bit of time. I don't necessarily think I have that time. So I think we're going to go switch our topic and go to something down under, and then we'll be able to move on from there. I'm going to wait for this next song to load up. We may have to change channels. I'm getting a little bit too tired when it comes to this content on the radio station. We are definitely switching. What do you liked? Autism spectrum disorder, or anybody that has autism. It's on a wide range of what autism means or how autism will impact that person. So it is something to keep in mind when it comes to what is being talked about here. Gonna stretch a bit. Alright. Language disorder. Language disorder or anything that impacts speech. A speech disorder is slightly different than a language disorder, so they do have some differences, obviously, but that is kind of the main concept of that disorder. Language is not developing as expected. Alright, self-care, I'm not sure what the ability to care, sure. Visual learning, we already did that. Cognitism, we already did that. Constructivism, we already did that. Behaviorism, we already did that. Receptive language. Receptive language, what would that mean? Receptive language. Okay. I think that would mean being able to understand what is being said to the student in a way that the person can understand. So being receptive of something would be being able to listen to what the teacher said and being able to summarize what the teacher said, as well as adding more meaning to what the teacher said. So not just that it shows concept of what was said, but also shows understanding of it. The ability to understand. Perfect. Attention deficit disorder is a disorder that deals with attention, obviously, and the deficit of attention, meaning that attention is hard, often to do with hyperactivity of the student. So the student needs to move around a lot, can't really deal with being in the classroom all by themselves, kind of sitting around. That isn't the best for a student that has ADD. Speech or language impairment, that is anything to do with the speech of the person, such as stuttering or not being able to say certain sounds. Anything to do with that would fall under this impairment, or simply the slow nature of speech. So anything that impacts the normal perspective we have on what someone with good speech has. Deafness is obviously to do with hearing. Well, I say obviously, I probably shouldn't be saying that too. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Deafness is to do with the hearing. So, if someone is fully deaf, it means that they can't hear. If someone has hearing issues, they could have hearing impairments. So that means that their hearing is simply hindered, but they don't necessarily, or they're not necessarily deaf. Deaf means no hearing. Multiple disabilities is with someone that has more than one of the above examples or future examples we may see, and often it could be ADHD with a learning disability such as dyslexia possibly, or something like that. Articulation is the process of saying words fully and sounding out the phonics or each of the sounds of the words mixed with each other. So being able to articulate means being able to say the words clearly as well as understanding the words. Development. Development. The process of forming the whatever you want to form. Growth, adaptation, or change over the course of time. Emotional disturbance. So this is where you could be starting to deal with students that are on BIPs, or behavioral intervention plans. And emotional disturbance or emotional disability would be something that directly impacts that person with that emotional disability, meaning that they tend to have outbreaks more easier than other students or something like that. Traumatic brain injuries are a separate category within the Disabilities Act and within special education, at least here in Texas, and I'm pretty sure is a national-wide thing. But it is obviously to do with the brain, hence the traumatic brain injury, and often has overstimulation can cause somebody with traumatic brain injury to be in a worse situation. I've also think I've heard that PTSD is common with traumatic brain injuries as well. Hearing impairments, like I was mentioning before, doesn't necessarily mean a complete loss in hearing, but does mean that the hearing is hindered. This calcula is probably to do with learning disabilities to do with math and numbers. Disabilities are, well, we're not over other health impairment or anything that falls. I think 504s are mentioned here. Impact related ADHD. Okay, sure. Alright, next one. Auditory learning. Why do they have repeats? That's learning by hearing. Why are you repeating? Alright, anyway. Attention deficit disorder. I actually mixed this up with the one before. They are similar, but this one is more to do with the hybrid. excuse me. This one's to do more with hyperactivity. Orthopedic impairment is to do with seeing, so that being impacting the person being able to see what is written down, or being able to read, that can impair their learning because of it. Oh, never mind. I read that wrong. Orthopedic, not my fault on that one. Whew, I missed that one. Yeah, alrighty. Well. So this is one that I don't particularly understand with specific learning disabilities. So we're going to flip it over. Affects a child's ability in math, reading, or writing. Dyslexia, dysgraphia, auditory processing, nonverbal. And that is a specific learning disability. But why is that the definition of a specific learning disability? And why isn't it under one of the other categories? I don't understand that part of it. It doesn't make really any sense to me. And I wish I understood that a little more. So that's definitely something that I'm trying to understand before having to take this final test. Because it is most likely going to be on this final test. Intellectual is anything to do with intelligence. Verbal skills, we know what that is. Dyslexia is a learning disability. Individualized education program, those are our plans. Kinesthetic learning is anything to do with learning while moving or physically being involved in the learning process. Deaf and blindness, we already went through that. Nonverbal skills are body language is probably going to be under one of these. Yep. Non-symbolic communication. Non-symbolic communication. I don't know. Emotional offerings or gestures. Okay. Visual impairments. We already did that. Alrighty, so we've done math and we done language. I think we did language, didn't we? Okay, summative assessments are anything that is done at the end of the unit or anything that is done as far as a benchmark or state test. Formal assessments are, it's the most common. Performance-based assessments are anything that's compared to the grade or even necessarily all the grades of that subject, such as a math test that is not just your homeroom math, but also any math levels of that grade if there is more than one math classroom, depending on how big the school is. Informal assessments are anything that is done informally, meaning that simply the teacher walking around the classroom kind of looking and judging students, not necessarily based off of a rubric. Universal screener, we already did that. We already did all these. Portfolio. Yeah, we already did all this. Active listening is the process in engaging in what the person is saying, not in just understanding what they're saying, but also providing your own feedback and other things to really actively listen, not just go, yes, no, or shake your head, nod it, and but to be engaged in a conversation. Okay, heterogeneous group is involving students that are not the same gender, but also not at the same level. So a heterogeneous group could have a gifted student in the same classroom as someone that may be in the resource room, or a student that isn't as achieving as one student. So it is a mixture of students in a group and not just the highest performance students in a group. Think, pair, share is the process of being usually in a small group, thinking over something with your partner or partners, and then sharing what you think as well as your final feedback over what you are thinking, being a very common process for this type of involvement in the process of learning. Curriculum-based assessments are done by the curriculum to determine how well the students are performing in their knowledge over what they need to be knowing through the TEKS process of learning. Print concepts. Let's see what that is. The general rules governing text. I don't understand that. Print concepts. The general rules governing text. I don't get it. We're going to go ahead and finish these flashcards and then we'll go into our sprint. Progress monitoring is the idea of monitoring all the students based off of where they need to be performing and where they are performing, and also comparing that data to other students out there to be able to determine how well the students are performing. Literature circles is the idea of forming a circle and reading with the students, and yeah. Summative assessments, we already did this. Okay. Diagnostic assessment. Directionality. Homogeneous grouping is the idea of not just maybe involving the same genders in a group, such as all males or all females, but also involving the same level of students for each of the groups, meaning that all the gifted students will be in one group while all the struggling students are in another group. That is what homogeneous grouping is. Oral language is the idea of anything that is spoken in words and said in words. I guess spoken and said are the same thing, but anything that is verbally said. Informal assessments. Why are everybody's the same? Ooh. Alright. Starting to get a little frustrated, but we'll calm down. Performance based. Alright, that was that flashcards. if I want to go on to writing or take a break. Check something real quick. Okay. We're gonna take a quick break, and then I'm not sure how much longer I'll be able to stay on. Actually, we're gonna go ahead and end the stream for today, actually. I appreciate y'all all stopping by. I may be on later today with an actual writing stream where we're just focused on that. I was planning to do some more writing, but I think we're going to go ahead and end it here so that I'll be able to do some other things that I need to be able to get done and maybe be able to stream towards the evening or night hours. So I'll catch y'all hopefully